As a cop, the 34-year-old Pete McKay was scheduled to go right to the top. He was ambitious, tough, and cynical, though not unreasonably. In action, he was still fast on his feet and a master at dealing with the occasional outbreak of inner-city violence. Like Danny, he was an expert marksman. Also, he packed a right hook like a jackhammer, should anyone be foolish enough to attack him. Officer Kearns, the resident comedian of the precinct, was not quite so dedicated to the police department. He had a very beautiful Italian wife, Louise, and by the end of most days he was about ready to call it quits and get home to his family. His straight man, Pete, also had a pretty wife, Marie, but he was always looking around for crimes to investigate, chatting with the detectives, moving steadily toward the day when he would become Detective Sergeant McKay. They were a popular team, McKay and Kearns, and they both spent a lot of hours raising funds for the families of police officers killed or injured in action. This morning, in the jostling hub of the airport's Terminal C, they were on high alert for anything that looked even remotely suspicious. Normally, they patrolled slowly, moving from one end of the terminal to the other, but never straying too far from the sight line of the security staff. This morning it was more difficult, owing to the sheer volume of passengers. The shouts of the airline staff rose above the throng. "This way, sir." "I'm sorry, sir, right to the end of that queue, right there." "We're moving it along, sir, just as fast as we can." "Just keep moving along, keep moving right along." "Jesus, Pete," said Danny. "I was in Greece one time, and they treated herds of fucking billy goats better than this." Pete McKay laughed, like always, at Danny's humor. But then the innate Boston cop on terrorist alert took over. "Yeah, but this is serious. We couldn't hardly move if anything happened. I've been trying to calculate. Maybe a full half minute from here to get to the security guys, unless we knock down a couple of dozen passengers." "You mean like Ryman against the Steelers last month? That time he took 3 defensive linemen with him? Hell, that was some play." "I guess that's the kind of thing. A head-down rush. But seriously, these are tough operating conditions, and we have to stay in view of the passengers and staff. Sure as hell be better if we can move a couple of feet without crashing into someone." The 2 police officers tried to move along toward the head of the queue, but turned back. "Just don't want to get out of sight of security, that's all," said McKay. Donald Martin was the junior vice president of a Boston brokerage house, and he was doing his level best to clear the new passport control system and get on a flight to Atlanta. He had no baggage and expected to be back home in Newton, west of Boston, by midnight. He was traveling with the president of his corporation, a silver-haired financier, a Boston Brahmin named Elliot Gardner, 30 years his senior. Donald was quietly reading the Globe. His boss was staring somewhat aimlessly into the distance, bored sideways by the airport procedures, unamused that their first-class tickets did not allow them to bypass this unattractive closeness to the rank and file, particularly as the queue had come to a tiresome halt. Behind them stood one passenger, apparently alone, and behind him was a family, 2 very young children, presumably with mom and dad. They had a lot of baggage piled on a cart. One child was screaming. Elliot Gardner hoped to God that the family was not traveling first class on Delta to Atlanta. "Wah!" wailed the child. "Jesus Christ," muttered Elliot Gardner. And then he felt a mild tap on the shoulder. The passenger behind him was making contact. He turned around and came face to face with a youngish man, well-dressed, no more than 30, of decidedly Middle Eastern appearance. He could have been Turkish or Arabian, but not Jewish or even Israeli. This was a face born and bred in desert, or Casbah. The man smiled broadly. "Excuse me, sir," he said. "I have 2 quite heavy briefcases here, and I'm just going over there to Starbucks for some coffee. Would you mind keeping an eye on them for me? Kick it along if the queue moves." Elliot glanced down at the brown leather briefcase on the floor. A well-mannered man, unaccustomed to rudeness, he replied, "No problem, leave it right there." Donald Martin absent-mindedly looked up from his newspaper and asked, "What did he want?" "Oh, just to watch his briefcase while he went for coffee. He's over there, heading for Starbucks. Guess I should have had him get some for us, since the goddamn queue is stalled." "Where is he?" said Martin, suddenly alert. "Just over there, the Starbucks counter." "What's he wearing?"